and you're more than welcome to come back in and make public comment if you'd like to. If you'd like to feel more comfortable, we have quite a few seats over there, and just wanted to let you know that. But we appreciate everyone coming out. I'd like to welcome you to the March meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Education. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first thing that we'd like to do is please stand. The colors tonight will be presented by the Robertson High School Junior ROTC program. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we have our moment of silence, I'd like for each of you to please remember Senator Nesbitt tonight in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Please be seated. Before we approve the agenda, if there's anyone here that would like to make public comment, we have a sign-up sheet which will be to your right. Mr. Rhodes there is holding up. If you would like to make public comment, please go over and register. We'd like to have your name and address, please. All right, so we have the agenda before us. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? All right, we have a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, Dr. Baldwin, superintendent comments.
I see a red. Balanced literacy. I'm sure with our audience that's a familiar concept for Buncombe County schools. In fact, it's been a trademark of our school system. Reading, writing, listening, speaking. However, a special focus has been placed on reading, and that's been at the forefront within many of our schools over the past few weeks. This past week, a number of our schools celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday and Read Across America. A few of our board members joined myself and community leaders to participate, and what fun. Can you ever tire of hearing Dr. Seuss, and especially, oh, the places you'll go? I should have it memorized, having sat through all the graduation speeches, and hearing that is one of the favorite books. I also want to recognize North Windy Ridge. Do we have any teachers from North Windy Ridge? Well, congratulations to that intermediate school, because they won the Buncombe County School Battle of the Books, and they will be advancing to regional, so we're so proud of them. Middle school students at work, that happened this week. Mrs. Cheek, she looks tired, and she should. She chaperoned all 750 students. She personally took them as they visited area businesses. They were aligned with the Chamber's 5x5 initiative, and you've heard us talk a lot about that. That's advanced manufacturing and engineering, healthcare, science and technology, arts and culture, and entrepreneurship. What a great means to provide early awareness for our students. and local career opportunities. And Ms. Cheek, again, we just can't thank you enough. What a wonderful opportunity for our kids. We've had 450 families that were represented as we went to all of our middle schools, all 7. In fact, we had an additional session here at Central Office. They were there to hear about the Discovery Academy as well as early college. That was a mandatory meeting. We are currently in the process of receiving those applications for a 9th grade class of 100 students to enter the Discovery Academy, and we will soon begin interviewing candidates for the Academy's first principal, so we're excited about that. Finally, I'm going to be fairly short and sweet tonight. A bit later in this agenda, you're going to hear from Chairman Reinhardt, and he will be presenting a board resolution regarding the 25% selection process of teachers for a 4-year contract. To preface that resolution, you will now hear a summary and update from representatives of our advisory committee on where we are in that particular process. But first, it is my privilege to recognize those members of the committee that have been working over the past several months. They represent District Teachers of the Year. They also represent several former system-wide Teachers of the Year. And needless to say, this has been an extremely challenging process. I consider each and every one of these individuals to be very brave, because what essentially we've done is we've recognized that this is the law as it's stated, and that what they have been asked to do has been very difficult, because they have left their personal viewpoints and professional viewpoints regarding this particular law. And what they have done is a remarkable job of just simply remaining focused on the task at hand and representing the rights of all 1,404 teachers that we have determined would meet the minimum requirements for this legislation. So, Board, I want you to see who these individuals are. I'm very proud of them, so I'm going to ask them again to be very brave and stand at this time, if you would, members of our committee. Thank you. At this time, 2 members, Eric Grant and Stephanie Buckner, certainly 2 of our finest in our teaching profession, are going to be presenting to you, the board, an overview, a summary of this process, and also update you in terms of where we are.
First off, thank you to Dr. Baldwin and to the Board of Education for allowing those of us directly impacted by this legislation, the teachers of Buncombe County Schools, to take the lead with creating this plan. We, the committee, appreciate the voice that you've given us in this legislation. This law is complicated. Educating ourselves as a committee was the only way that we could make an informed decision to the task at hand. We worked hard with Dr. Baldwin and with Mrs. Lopez to learn as much as possible about this legislation, and then we developed resources to take to our districts to share with our colleagues.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. To begin with, committee members presented in our base districts a presentation that informed folks about the legislation. And as a committee, we agreed on some very clear purposes for our presentations. The first purpose was to share the law. We felt that in order for folks to make a decision based on knowledge, they needed to understand the law. We felt that, number 2, we wanted to share what we considered to be some viable options for addressing the law. And number 3, we wanted to share how all teachers could have a voice in the process. So tonight, we will share with you an abbreviated version of our presentation to the districts, our survey results, and an update from our committee. So here's the law. Let me flip to my page. Thank you. As stated, we shared the law, and in particular, the highlighted portions of that law. And what those say, in essence, is that 25% of teachers are to be awarded 4-year contracts from each school district. In order to be eligible, each teacher needs to have taught in Buncombe County schools for 3 consecutive years and to have been proven proficient on their teacher evaluation instrument. Also, that by accepting the contracts, teachers would accept a $500 annual pay increase in exchange for relinquishing career status, otherwise known as tenure. And that number 4, the superintendent would recommend the names for board approval such that the contracts could be made and accepted by June 30th.
So then when we went to the districts, we actually broke down eligibility a little bit more for our teachers. This particular slide shows the definition of teachers. The State Attorney General's office has indicated to us that any personnel that is in a position that is eligible for career status is defined as a teacher under this legislation. So this encompasses a lot more than what we think of as a classroom teacher. And that last bullet gets into detail about that. It includes counselors, psychologists, social workers, speech language pathologists, career development coordinators, media coordinators, instructional coaches, licensed technology facilitators, and licensed support staff. So this definition that we're working with is a lot broader than originally perhaps intended. And then we broke down what they were actually eligible for in trade of giving up career status for a 4-year contract. And we showed the graphic showing the annual pay raises pursuant to General Assembly funding that is outlined by the law.
We presented for teachers an overview of what the difference was between career status and a 4-year contract. Again, this is a complicated law, so we wanted to make sure that all the information was there for teachers to make an informed decisions and for our county to make an informed decision.
It's really tight. So then how does the calculating the 25% look in Buncombe County schools? We talked a little bit about that 25%. There's about 2,000 eligible employees in Buncombe County schools. When you break that down into the different definitions of job descriptions, 85% of those are what we consider classroom teachers, and then 15% fall in the various other licensed positions over on the side. When we apply the filters that are mandated by the law, we have approximately 1,400 candidates that would be eligible, and when we take our 25%, we come down to about 350. So Buncombe County can offer about 350 employees this 4-year contract.
So the process that we undertook, as was mentioned, and those people who stood represent the Superintendent Teacher Advisory Committee, which was established in November. The committee informed all teachers of this law and what it meant by email, set up information on the employee website, held meetings throughout the school system, and issued a survey for teacher input. Our next slide shows that we scheduled 6 district meetings, and again, we went out with the goal of informing folks of what this law looked like.
So then our approach to the law. Our committee's currently looking at 2 approaches. The first is what we've termed as the 1 bucket approach. This approach would select 25% of eligible employees from 1 bucket. However, different positions have different evaluation instruments that have different ratings. And if you'll recall, the law requires a minimum of proficient for eligibility. So what is proficient on different instruments? Well, that's what this slide shows. You see that there's actually four different evaluation instruments for the different job descriptions. And the green bar indicates the proficient level. And so you can see that there's various amounts above proficient and below proficient on the various instruments. So this is problematic and presents quite a bit of complications. So the committee also has a multi-bucket system. Under this approach, personnel with like evaluations would be grouped, and 25% of each bucket would be selected to total 25% of the county.
some districts have looked at strictly using teacher evaluation data to help inform this decision. So we looked at that. And what we found when we looked at this, and this is looking over the last 2 years of evaluation data for all employees, that if we just went on all distinguished, so anybody who was distinguished, we didn't get, as you can tell by the graphic, anywhere near 25%. If we coupled accomplished and distinguished, the two higher rankings, we were well over that 25%. So in short, that didn't help us at all.
So we thought we'd ask our colleagues' opinions. So we commissioned a survey. We commissioned a system-wide email survey, and we spent quite a bit of time as a committee hashing out these survey questions, trying to seek a little bit of guidance from our larger crowd of colleagues. We had a 59% rate. We had about 834 respondents. It was offered to all 1,400 employees.
So now I'll share the survey results, which of course were interesting too. The first question, will you accept the contract in exchange for career service? 82.4% of teachers said they would not accept the contract in exchange for career service. While 17.6% said they would. Using primarily evaluation data, going back to that slide I showed just a couple of minutes ago, almost 75% said that that would not be a selection criterion that they would prefer. Using a lottery, just simply putting all the names of eligible people into one bucket and pulling out 25%, and 68% said that thought that was a good idea, while 32% said no. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't move my slides along. And then we also asked about specific criterion. So, for example, lack of disciplinary actions and reprimands. Would that be a reason why somebody would be promoted for this 25% or not? And this was actually, of all the singled out criterion that we selected, or criteria we selected, this was the highest score. So 38.1% said that this was a very important or critical piece of information in terms of determining the 25%. Now, interestingly, 33% said that this was not important to them. The second most important piece of information for people was whether teachers had advanced degrees at 25.1%. Again, not important, 41% said that was not important to them. And then more experienced teachers, 21.6 said that they thought that was important to consider, while again, 48% said it was not important. So in summary, what we learned is that this too did not provide a clear direction for the committee.
So what's next? Our committee is scheduled to meet yet again. We plan to recommend a plan for selection of the 25% to Dr. Baldwin. Following the recommendation of the plan, all eligible employees will be given an opportunity to formally opt out. The survey results were non-binding and they were anonymous. So following the recommendation of a plan, there would be a formal opt-out period for employees. Then the board will receive the 25% list in time for the contracts to be offered per the date listed in the current legislation. Again, we want to thank the board and Dr. Baldwin for giving teachers a voice in decoding all of this legislation. And do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. All right. So we're going to move on to employees. Do we have some employees to recognize?
Yes, sir. We have two. So good evening, Chairman Reinhardt, Dr. Baldwin, members of the board. We have two employees to recognize for their service tonight. I normally like to get out and speak with them, but I did not get a chance tonight to find out what some of their favorite things about their jobs are. But anyway, our first is Margarita Brookins, and she's been with us for 10 years. She is currently a media assistant at Johnston Elementary School. And the second recognition is William Abramitis, who has been with us for 20 years, and he is a science teacher at Reynolds High School. Tonight's good news is a little different in that I don't think we've recognized the club in my short time here, but this one really impressed me, maybe because spring is coming, maybe as our thoughts turn to our gardens, sports, or hobbies like fishing. The Trout Club at Pisgah Elementary is representative of so many different ways our teachers make learning fun, ways they make it practical, and ways that they involve their students in activities that encourage a sense of wonder about the world around them. We're very fortunate tonight to have Jan Caldwell and a whole group of students here to tell us a little bit about Pisgah Elementary's Trout Club. We don't have that. Yeah, just speak up.
Okay, Trout in the Classroom is a national environmental education program for students in grades K-12. We raise trout from eggs, we monitor tank water quality, we engage in stream habitat studies, we learn to appreciate water resources, and we understand ecosystems. And this is the second year for Pisgah Elementary's Trout Club. We meet 3 days per week before school and occasionally after school. Upcoming events include speakers from Riverlink and demonstrations for fly fishermen. We will be visiting the largest hatchery in North Carolina near Brevard in April. And we'll culminate with the release of our trout in May with a permit from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Raising trout from eggs gives students an opportunity to apply real-world science concepts while they're reading, they're writing, they're doing mathematics. Now you enjoy hearing from our students.
In September, we set up the tank. Eggs were delivered and placed in a mesh fencing. At first, the tiny orange eggs did not become tank, but then they began to grow eyes. About 100 eggs died because their water temperature rose where there was too much light. We covered the tank with cardboard and made doors and doors to watch them. It was exciting when the eggs began to wiggle and hatch.
At first, the fish looked like tadpoles.
Thank you, guys.
Very well done.
Thank you, guys. Good
Thank
job.
you. Thanks, guys and gals. Good job.
All right, for the folks that are out in the hallway, there's a few seats that have opened up towards the front here if you'd like to come find a seat. Parents, thank you very much. And next on our agenda is the curriculum feature, Read to Achieve. Ms. Swanger, thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, for Dr. Seuss's birthday, I didn't read "Oh, the Places You Will Go." I read, "I Don't Want to Get Up Today." But that really wasn't me. And in keeping with the sea of red, we're not going to talk about read to achieve, but read to achieve. It is another law that came on the books last year as part of the Excellent Public Schools Act. And it has provided lofty goals for our children, because we certainly want all children to be able to read on grade level when they leave third grade. That's been a board priority. You have supported our teachers in that endeavor. However, the law does have challenges, and I would like Ms. Candy Sellers, our elementary director and intermediate school director, to share with you what we've done so far and what we expect to do between now and summer.
Good evening, Chairman Reinhardt, Dr. Baldwin, and the board. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce Millie Stubbs, who's one of my instructional coaches, and she's going to help me with this presentation. So welcome, Millie Stubbs. As Mrs. Swanger said, this has been quite a challenge for us. It is even more challenging sometimes for our third grade teachers in the classroom because it directly affects them. Not only does it directly affect our third grade teachers, it affects K-3. We know that this is, it's a team effort to make sure that these students are successful. Now, let me see here. Wrong way. Our North Carolina Read to Achieve, it was an excellent, the Excellent Public Schools Act. It was adopted in July of 2012. It was effective beginning the 2013-14 school year, so that started this year. We piloted the Reading 3D assessments in 2012-13, which was to our benefit because that helped us be able to be ahead of the game somewhat, and our teachers became very proficient in using that assessment. So here is the part of the law that we all agree on. As a public school teacher or as a teacher, and this room happens to be full of teachers, and I don't think there's anybody out there that would disagree with the goal to ensure that every student read at or above grade level by the end of third grade and continue to progress in reading proficiency so that he or she can read, comprehend, integrate, and apply text needed for secondary education and career success. And that's extremely important because that's what we all believe. However, we know that students do this at different rates, and it occurs with different strategies and differentiating instruction. And so that's why it's extremely important that this is a K-3 effort, a team effort, and that it's not just left up to our third grade teachers to ensure this. And when we talk about it being a K-3 effort, we use this illustration quite a bit, and all the teachers in this room have probably seen this. But when you do an intervention with a second grader, you're changing the direction of a speedboat. But when you do an intervention with a fifth grader, you're changing the direction of an oil tanker. That's why it is so important that we reach these students at an early age and get them on the right track. That's why we've been so fortunate in Buncombe County Schools that Dr. Baldwin and the board has paid close attention to making sure that we have teacher assistants in our K-3 classrooms and that we have the resources that we need. So we'll just throw a thanks in there for that. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to let Millie speak at this time.
So one component of the law involves facilitating early grade reading proficiency. And there are 3 parts to that. Formative diagnostic assessments in grades K-3, and we use the Reading 3D assessment for this formative assessment. It also involves instructional supports and services for difficulties in reading development. And Dr. Baldwin mentioned earlier the balanced literacy approach that we use. That includes guided reading and also Title I, which is one way that we support reading development. We are thankful for our instructional assistants who help with this as well. And then the Reading 3D assessment recommends supports that we can use in our instruction of these students. The Reading 3D also involves formative diagnostic data to identify root causes of reading development deficiency. We're able to drill down with that assessment tool and really get at the root of what is going on with struggling students. So I rushed it, I think. Sorry. So the M-Class Reading 3D is a formative and diagnostic assessment tool, and it has 2 components. It involves the Dibbles Next, which is a universal screener. There are as few as 1 or as many as 6 assessments in that portion of the Reading 3D, and they last from 1 minute to 3 minutes. And it assesses early literacy skills. And then there's the TRC, which is text reading comprehension, which gives us an instructional independent reading level for our students. We talked a little bit about the diagnostic data, and this is an example of the data that we get from the Reading 3D. And from this particular sample, we see that when the TRC was done middle of the year, 56% of our 3rd grade students were proficient or above proficient. And then another component of this Read to Achieve law is the elimination of social promotion. And that includes retention after 3rd grade. Students who do not meet the Read to Achieve requirements are retained after 3rd grade. However, there are several good cause exemptions to the law.
Okay, and I know that chart is a little different, a little difficult to read, but our chart kind of gives us a flow of how this works. So the student is in 3rd grade, and they are given several opportunities to be proficient so that they move on to 4th grade. One of those ways is they can pass the EOG and be proficient there. If they don't pass the EOG, they have a second opportunity to take the EOG. We also have, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but the BOG, which was given at the beginning of the year, and Millie will probably talk about that in just a few minutes. I don't want to steal her thunder. And that was another way that students could be proficient. We have the portfolio process that the students can participate in the portfolio process. And this is where we have the 12 standards, and the students have to score at least 70% on 3 of those passages at each standard. And they can work on those at their own pace. Some students are ready for that process right now, some students are not. So the students that are being successful will continue with it. If they feel frustrated or not being successful, then the teacher pulls them out of that process and works with them individually on those standards to help prepare them for that. Along with that, they're still doing progress monitoring throughout this time with the Reading 3D. And at that point, when we're talking about the good cause exemptions, those students that have had limited English proficiency, for students, if they have less than 2 years of instruction in ESL, then that's a good cause exemption. They are they do not fall under the Read to Achieve law. Students with IEPs, individual education plans, if they are on Extend 1, which is an alternate assessment, that's a good cause exemption. And then later on, we'll talk about the state came back and said that if they're on Extend 2, then those students will be that's considered a good cause exemption as well. If they're proficient on an alternate assessment, and we'll talk about that as well,
proficiency through the reading portfolio, or if they have previously been retained more than once in grades K1 or 2 or 3. For successful reading development for our retained students, you've heard about the summer camp, the 6-week summer camp that those students who are still working on their portfolio process could possibly attend. Students who did not pass the EOG would be attending the summer school for 6 weeks. And then if they're not successful in summer school, or on the Read to Achieve alternative test that's going to be available as well, or pass the EOG, then they're not promoted to 4th grade, but they will be in a 3rd, 4th grade transition class or an accelerated class, and they will receive instruction on 4th grade curriculum, but receive additional 90 minutes of instruction in reading. And then they could possibly have a mid-year promotion at November 1st if they've completed their portfolio process or been successful on the Read to Achieve assessment. Then they will be promoted to 4th grade at that time. One thing I did leave out was that Read to Achieve assessment. We haven't seen that yet. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that's going to be another way that they can become proficient and pass on to 4th grade. Well, okay. You want to use your hands and go ahead. The battery's going dead.
Oh, okay.
So we must not be plugged up.
Okay. So, Ms. Swanger serves on the Read to Achieve Advisory Committee, and that committee met in January. They were provided with the opportunity for districts to share their concerns and questions about the Read to Achieve law. And after that meeting, we received several updates based on their input. And those updates include students with a scale score of 442 or higher on the BOG reading test, and the BOG is the beginning of grade reading test, have demonstrated proficiency. So in Buncombe County, there are 1,905 students who took the BOG, and 447 of those students were proficient on the BOG, which means they met the reading comprehension requirements specified in the Read to Achieve law. Of course, these students will still take the EOG. Another update was our good cause exemptions. So we had the good cause exemption for students who took the North Carolina Extend 1, and the update included the North Carolina Extend 2 as well. And then the third update, and one that we're focused on tonight, is the use of alternative assessments approved by the State Board of Education.
As part of that alternative assessment proposal, the State Board of Education approved several requests from local school districts to use alternative assessments under the Read to Achieve legislation, provided that these requests were subject to compliance with the following condition: that they've been approved by the local school board of education, signed by the local chair, and that the request contains a statement verifying that the local board of education has determined that the requested alternative assessment is valid and reliable standardized assessment of reading comprehension, and demonstrates that a student is reading at or above the 3rd grade level as required by the law. So we had the opportunity last week to meet with at least one 3rd grade teacher from each of our schools that serve 3rd grade students. Those teachers came in after school, after teaching all day, to make some important decisions. We also had representation of Title I teachers, ESL teachers, EC teachers, AIG teachers, and am I forgetting any group? Coaches. Our instructional coaches were there. And administrators were welcome if they chose to come. We had a great group. We had a great discussion. There may be some folks in this room that was actually present during that discussion. And we talked about the two possibilities that we have. We can continue the Read to Achieve legislation the way we have been doing so with the passages. And that was our proposal one. Our second proposal was that students with a Reading 3D end of the year TRC, and one thing I think I need to point out for those of us that are not educators in the room or who don't deal with the M class, is there's a beginning of the year assessment and then teachers progress monitor. There's a middle of the year assessment and they progress monitor. And then there's the end of the year assessment that we will do in April, where we will get that end of the year score and we see the growth of the students. If we're not seeing growth for some reason, then we know we have to dig deeper and change the way we're instructing those students. But with our TRC level, our text reading comprehension, if they have a level P or higher, they will have met the Read to Achieve requirements. Reading 3D written assessments from our middle of the year and our end of the year must be included in that portfolio. This is just additional evidence that can be reviewed at the end of the year to support proficiency for a good cause exemption. We also talked with the teachers and they agreed, and we have encouraged them to continue the portfolio process for those students that are having success with the portfolio process, using their professional judgment to determine which students will benefit from this focused instruction and assessment. And so we had some discussion, we asked questions, they talked amongst themselves, and then they had the opportunity to vote. And they were voting on which option they wanted to bring to the board to have you all approve. And it was a unanimous vote by ballot that we ask you all to approve this as our alternate assessment, in hopes that our students that may have a difficult time completing the EOG based on the length of the EOG it being a one-time test, maybe they have test anxiety, etc., that they have this as another tool in their little toolbox to help them be successful in reading. The teachers agree that this will be very helpful to some of our students that may be scoring very high on level 2 on the EOG. This might take them to the next level and help them be successful. We know that we will still monitor those students in 4th grade to make sure that they are reading proficiently at grade level. So that is our proposal, that we ask that you all as a board look at that, and I think it is on the consent agenda. And I think all of our 3rd grade teachers agree that that's what we feel is best for our 3rd grade students.
Board, do you have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I have one. Did I understand you correctly that you don't have the test yet?
We have not had the opportunity to see the Read to Achieve assessment. That's an additional assessment for. So, yeah, it's at end of the year, and they can use it at the end of the year after the EOG, or they can use it in the summer, or it also can be used in the 4th grade as the mid-year test to make them successful in 3rd grade.
And the thing to me that I see that's problematic, and maybe it won't be, but the retention. And I'm obviously not as in tune with it as you guys are, but the little bit of research I've looked at, when you retain that 3rd grader, that 2nd grader, that 4th grader, the chance of success later on really decreases. Am I right in that?
You are correct. And as a county, we have always looked at that research and respected that research, but we have also, as a committee, we've respected when teachers have come to us with concerns. Schools have committees that look at that individual student. They sit down, they have conversation, they meet with the parent, all of the teachers, staff members that work with that student, they sit down and have input. The principal, of course, has the final decision, except with this new law in 3rd grade about promotion. We take those discussions very serious. And that's handled on an individual basis, but you're exactly right. The research shows that there's a higher percentage of those students dropping out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How much, I think we all agree with the goal of this program,
Yes.
but how much time is lost of actual teaching time through the bureaucracy?
I think that answers your question.
I mean, is it 30%?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear.
30%? I mean, how much is taken away from actual teaching?
Well, now that we've added the portfolio process, I would venture to say it's a little more than 30%. And our teachers do a wonderful job differentiating instruction. They're orchestrating groups while they're working with other students. They do a wonderful job with that, but there's only so much time in the day. You're right. So.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry our
That's okay.
PowerPoint went astray on us here.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. If you have not signed up and would like to make public comment, it's still not too late to do so. Mr. Rhodes, do we have anyone signed up for public comment? And I would like to remind everyone that you will have 3 minutes to make your public comment. Thank you, Ms. Dick. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman Reinhardt, Dr. Baldwin, and members of the school board, and most especially all of the teachers, administrators, and parents who took the time to be here to support public education. I must truly say that it says something special about our passion that so many of us are here to be seen and to be heard, and that we recognize all of the teachers who cannot be here because they're either at their second jobs tonight or they're still at their first job hosting students and parents in programs that enrich their students. I am a proud member of BCAE, and most especially, it should go out without saying that I'm a member of an amazing, magical, dedicated legion of professional educators. But I'll take 3 minutes anyway to reiterate a few things that you already know. We have continued to work tirelessly to meet rigorous and challenging Common Core standards and make these standards relevant to becoming a 21st century learner. We have represented our schools and our communities honorably, reaching out to support our students and their families in their unique struggles and accomplishments. We have performed many miracles, great and small, in spite of dwindling pool of resources and a dramatically choked schedule full of new curriculum and redundant high-stakes assessments, stealing essential instructional time away from our children. We have differentiated our instruction to meet diverse and constantly changing needs of our students, teasing out strengths and weaknesses so that each child has the ability to meet his or her highest potential. We've continued to persevere and share our best practices to the rich benefit of our colleagues and, most importantly, our students. Collaboration is the cornerstone of our efforts, and we must be supported and encouraged to work together to address all challenges and obstacles that are presented. All of what we do is in the interest of creating a stronger, more confident, more competent, and successful student and citizen and future employee. Hear this. There is no top 25% that can capture all that an excellent teacher does and all that they mean to this community. Regardless of the outcome of tonight's meeting, we will continue to do all of these things and more because it is what we do and all most any of us wanted to do. We are deeply grateful for the widespread community support and acknowledge the complicated and intense work of educating our children. Having the public support of our school board leadership will go a long way toward restoring and building our morale. I hope we'll continue this important dialogue, and we look forward to ways to collaborate further with other North Carolina school boards. Let's come together now and make a statement that the 25% contract is not a way that we will treat our teaching professionals. We have too long stayed dutifully silent on these matters, trusting that common sense would prevail. Well, we're awake now, aren't we? And in the end, this is not about us. It's about the education of our children and the strength of our community for many generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Linda. Mr. Rhodes?
Hi, good evening. Wow, Paula, that was powerful, and I don't even want to be here now. No, I'm just kidding. As a teacher and as a member of the Buncombe County Association of Educators, I want to thank the board tonight and all of you for creating the teacher contract resolution that speaks against poor legislation practices that harm teachers, and for creating a resolution that shows you support the teachers in Buncombe County. I want to assure our community that despite the difficulties that teachers have faced with underfunded federal mandates and legislation that has brutalized our morale, our dignity, and our ability to teach at optimum levels, that we teachers are in our classrooms every day, taking care of the children of this county with love and dedication. Despite the difficulties that have been thrust upon us, we teachers are still working together to improve our practices. We teachers are still finding excitement when students succeed. We teachers are still keeping our students' interests at heart. We care about our students. We care about our ability to serve our students because we know when our ability has been impaired or is compromised, so too are the abilities of our students. This resolution tells teachers that you care too. And again, I thank you. Lastly, this resolution sends a positive message to teachers that our community supports us. In a time when good teachers are leaving this profession to find work where they can be fairly compensated and respected, this resolution says to them, we hear you, we are listening, we are trying to help. And I ask for your continued support and awareness as we navigate through these difficult times in public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brookline.
Mine is very short. Chairman Reinhardt, board members, Dr. Baldwin, colleagues, and parents. My name is Robin Pass, and I am the proud president of Buncombe County Association of Educators. We would like to offer our sincerest thanks tonight to all of those who have taken the time to be here in support of our teachers and our children. Board members, on behalf of BCAE, of teachers across this county and this state, we would like to thank you for your efforts to put forth a resolution that rings true to the frustrations we have heard expressed continually regarding these 25% contracts. Knowing that our board supports what's best for our teachers and schools and ultimately our children feels somehow like a victory. When we look at the lengthy list of obstacles teachers are faced with day after day, many out of our control, it's encouraging to see that steps towards change can be achieved. I wanted to borrow from a phrase I heard recently that I found just profound and relative to these very challenges, and that is this. We must remember that when referring to the conditions that a teacher must work in, we are ultimately talking as well about the conditions that a student and a child must learn in. Thank you, board, for your recognition of this truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pass.
I'm Adrienne Hollifield. I teach at Owen High School. First, I would like to thank you for supporting teachers in their concerns about merit pay for the top 25% with the resolution you are passing. I particularly like the statement that Buncombe County has more than 25% of its teachers who deserve merit-based raise, and that the mandate process is demeaning to teachers. You're right about that. In fact, I encourage you to continue to support teachers in any way you can, because teachers are on the brink of an abyss right now. As I listen to conversations in the workrooms and the halls, I hear almost every teacher talking about leaving teaching for another profession. They're looking for a profession that receives more money and a profession that receives more respect from their elected leaders. They're looking for a job where they are not required to work during the day, grade at night and on weekends, and still be expected to give more. My colleagues and I cannot give more. We have neglected our families and our home lives and dedicated ourselves to the education of our students. We are their teachers, their cheerleaders, their motivators, their social workers, their counselors, and their role models. We must motivate the unmotivated and inspire the jaded, and to be frank, we are worn out. Morale is low in part because no matter what our teachers do, our legislators want us to do more, and they insult us in the process. That is why we are so desperately need your continuing support. Randolph County Senator Jerry Tillman has called us dead wood. I am not dead wood. Hence his push to get rid of tenure. Senate Pro Tem Phil Berger heard that it was difficult to get rid of bad teachers. Apparently, bad teacher rumor mills are the way we hire and fire in North Carolina. Berger has publicly stated that he sees little benefit to having a teaching certificate, proposing that his engineer neighbor could come into a classroom and do as good a job as I do without any training at all. He says it's because his neighbor has expertise. Slights like this are counterproductive to getting good people to come in and stay in the profession. I ask you, board members, to consider taking this resolution further by standing with Wake County and taking your concerns to the governor, or joining with Guilford and Durham counties and taking our legislature to court, making it really clear that this state administration is taking the heart out of teachers and teaching, and a broken education system is not what we want. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm so proud to see you all. Wow, you all too. And I'm so proud to be here with you. My name is Lindsay First. I'm a teacher at T.C. Robertson High School, a proud member of BCAE, and an organizer in the NCAE Organized 2020 Caucus. I want to step back from the contracts for a second and say that whatever else tonight might be about, it is at its roots about change, or courage, rather, sorry, can't read my own writing. It's about courage and possibility. Nobody feels what's going on in education in this state is right. Everybody knows that education in North Carolina is under attack. Everyone knows that these policies are destructive and criminal. But many of them feel hopeless or scared. They don't feel that it's possible to be heard, or that change can happen, or that they have that power. They feel fearful of retribution in their jobs, or from a vocal and sometimes hurtful minority. When our school board takes action and leads, it changes the game. When you vote to stand up for students and their parents and their teachers, you tell this community that there are options. It lends courage to those of us watching who maybe didn't have it. It shows us that we can push our boundaries for what is right and emerge on the other side, that we can take risks and change can occur. It creates possibility that wasn't there. Look, I'm here tonight and I'm gonna go to work tomorrow and it's gonna be okay. They're here tonight standing up for us and they're gonna be okay. It makes it okay to step out. It makes it possible to speak up. It gives us hope that when we do that, something might happen. I want to ask all of you, no matter what happens here, to remember what you see here tonight. And remember what you feel here tonight, because this is possibility, and this is courage. And for every one of you, there are 50 more at your school who are feeling hopeless and a lack of courage, fearful. When we're working for something and fighting for something, we cannot also feel hopeless at the same time about that thing. They do not exist in the same space. And board, tonight, I know that you are going to help all of us feel hopeful and courageous and experience possibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize. I am not here. I'm here as a concerned parent, and I apologize for being a Debbie Downer, if that's what the case may be. According to my kitchen timer, this is 1 minute and 42 seconds. I practiced it 3 times, so I'm hoping. I'm here tonight to tell you about my son's 6-month kindergarten career at Black Mountain Primary School. 6 months, he's been pinched, punched, pushed, choked, scratched, kissed by a boy repeatedly, had pencils and hands shoved down the back of his pants, and had almost all of his school supplies stolen. Despite my voicing my concerns repeatedly, nothing has changed or has been done to resolve this matter. To boot, in a classroom of 16 children with 2 teachers, no one has ever been around to see anything or to help my son out when he's been in need. In 6 months, my son has been so afraid to use the bathroom because there are negative consequences for using the bathroom during unauthorized times. He has suffered from urinary tract infections, as well as comes home every day nearly peeing his pants. In 6 months of school, my son has been misplaced, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And by misplaced, I mean he's been, a boy who's normally a walker has been put on a bus where he does not belong, sent to a place where he does not belong, despite simple directions given to me, to the teachers by me. It was the 3rd time this past Tuesday that was the straw that broke the mama camel's back. I immediately withdrew my son from Black Mountain Primary after clearly voicing my concerns about my son's safety and well-being to Principal McGinnis. In 6 months of school, I've had countless meetings, emails, verbal communications with the teacher, as well as 2 meetings with the principal in effort to remedy all the above concerns. Things only seem to get worse after each of these meetings. For me, this is no longer okay, and I stand before you tonight asking you when this is no longer okay for you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, I would ask that if you can stay around after the meeting, maybe you can talk to Dr. Baldwin for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Link.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, fellow Democrats. No, I'm just kidding. I've been up here about 3 times, and every time I feel I'm coming into the lion's den. I've got a couple things to say that I think are of substantial importance about how the board proceeds with its activities. And before I say that, I'm going to just simply give you a little bit of background upon my background, upon which I base my comments. Currently, I'm president of Asheville Lions Club. I'm a precinct chair in the Buncombe County GOP, but wait. I publish a magazine for physicians in Western North Carolina. In my previous lives, I've been a member of the Planning Commission for the City of Roseville, Minnesota, chairman of Common Cause in Minnesota, member of the board of directors of a YMCA in Minneapolis, member of the board of directors of a Presbyterian church in Minneapolis. And back when you could be a Democrat and think for yourself, I was a Senate district chair of the DFL party in Minnesota. In my business career, I've been a director of development for Minnesota Public Radio. I've had a consulting firm that worked with nonprofit organizations all over the upper Midwest. I've been a public relations director of the United Way in a large city. And I've been CEO and founder of a advertising company in New York, CEO and founder of another advertising company in Minneapolis, Chief Financial Officer for a family-held trust of small companies, and executive aide to the Commissioner of Commerce in Minnesota, in which we regulated securities, banking, insurance, and real estate. I also spent a number of years as an investments broker and investment banker, for which I will surely answer in heaven. But now, having said that, I have some background about what I'm going to say. I understand that this board has developed essentially a closed agenda for requests for agenda placement that must be approved in advance by the chairman, that no resolutions can be brought before this board by committee members. I've never experienced in my life anything as closed and as untransparent as this. And I would highly strongly request from you that you check into how many other school boards in North Carolina use this procedure and whether or not it is appropriate for a public forum like this with an extremely important agenda to have a closed system like this. And secondly,
Mr. Lane, thank you very much.
Is that 3 minutes?
Yes, sir.
All right, Audit Committee. I mentioned that last time.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Hello. I'd like to return back to tenure. I'm a new teacher at Buncombe County Schools, so I don't have tenure. And you could say that means I don't have a horse in this race. But it does matter. It matters to everyone. Because I'm new at Buncombe County and because of the new legislation, it means I have no hope of getting tenure back, in spite of being a teacher for 18 years, 14 in Catawba County and 5 in New York, so it's my 19th year. Apparently I'm not in math, sorry. I'm National Board certified not once, but twice. I have AAG licensure. I am AP certified. I have a master's degree. And you'd say, why worry? You have no tenure. You have credentials. Have no fear. And I've heard that from people year after year, saying, don't stress about tenure. Don't freak out about switching schools. But it does matter because our state has told us, by taking away pay for master's degrees for these newer teachers, that they do not value higher education. You say, it won't affect us. It's not possible. But if there's a reduction in force in any of the high schools in the English department, because I'm the one teacher without tenure, that means I have to get riffed. And a new teacher will take my place. It can happen. It will happen. It happened to me. I wanted to tell you a brief story about my teaching in New York. I started in New York State. First year, we're let go at the end of the year. I was devastated. Second year, my boss pulls me aside, says, I've got to let you go in May. You know, I'm letting you go. You want to know what your schedule is the following year? Oh, what is this scam? They had realized that the 42 of us that were hired when I was hired, if they were let go every summer, they could save an entire teacher's salary in insurance. Instead of getting tenure after 3 years, we had to wait 5 years. Every May, hey, I got to let you go. Great. What am I teaching next year? Here's your schedule. It was this going line. So for 5 years, I made $32,000. For 5 years, I had no insurance over the summer. At the end of 5 years, all 42 of us were cut. What is their agenda when they take away tenure from teachers? They're wage busting. They want to keep us at first-year pay. They've told us they don't value higher education. That's why they're not paying other people with master's degree. Should I be worried? I'm always distinguished or accomplished on my evaluations. Yes, I'm worried. Because state of North Carolina has told us it doesn't matter. And if there's a reduction in force, they have to let me go because I don't have tenure. And I do not make $32,000, which means it would be smart to let me go. This should have made me silent. Instead, it's made me angry.
Ms. Hefner, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Gilbert.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Baldwin and the Sea of Red. It's good to see everyone out there tonight. My name's Chris Gilbert. I taught English for 7 years at A.C. Reynolds High School, and I currently teach English at Buncombe County Early College. I showed up tonight and honestly didn't know if I wanted to come up here and speak or not. So it's something I feel passionate about. But I've written about this, and I know you've received my emails, and I don't want to kick a dead horse, but I feel incredibly passionate about this issue. Over the past several months, I've tried to understand the motivations behind this 25% mandate. And I've racked my brain. I just couldn't figure out what the intentions were. So I got online and I did some research. And I came across a quote by a certain representative, who I won't name. But this representative essentially said that the goal of this 25% mandate is to remove tenure because we have so many terrible teachers who hide behind tenure. So I thought about this and I thought, where are all of these bad teachers? And I thought back to my time at Reynolds, and I thought back to all the wonderful, intelligent, dedicated people that I worked with at that school. And I think about my wonderful colleagues, many of whom are here tonight, that I work with at Buncombe County Early College. And again, I've racked my brain, and I just can't identify these terrible teachers. I even went online and looked at the North Carolina educator effectiveness data for the state and the county. The abundance of teachers, not only in our county, but in our state, are proficient, accomplished, or distinguished. So this is a mystery to me. So I think what we're doing is asking the wrong questions. We shouldn't be asking, how can we get rid of bad teachers? We need to ask, how can we endorse policies that recruit and retain good teachers? Teachers are the backbone. Teachers are the backbone of our culture. These people are important, they're hardworking, they're essential. We have to figure out how to adopt policies that encourage them to stay. So I would thank you for the resolution that you have adopted, but I would encourage you to go even further. And I would just like to say that we have to remember that dissent is an important part of the democratic process, and it is a right that we have to exercise in times like these. Thank you.
Yes, I brought the snow and the ice. Good evening, Chairman Reinhardt, Superintendent Baldwin, members of the board. It's good to be here with you this evening as a member of the public and here with my educator friends, teachers from Buncombe County Schools, hopefully some Asheville City. And may I say that brown is the new red. Forgot my red. As you know, I'm attending classes now with Western Carolina's Master of Public Affairs program. And I'm taking a fascinating set of classes on legal issues and public policy. Fits very well with this policy because it is, as we've learned in my class, arbitrary, capricious, and downright illegal, in my opinion. I would like to commend the board and the board attorneys for moving forward with the resolution toward this 25% mandate. You've done a great job of calling attention to the potential illegalities in the General Assembly's action. You have, as you've heard from my colleagues, you've pointed out the divisiveness and the fact that this is a very destructive action by the General Assembly, and I'm very glad that I know you will all pass this resolution tonight now that you've heard my eloquent educator comrades. However, I'm here for a slightly different reason, to thank you for this resolution and to beg that you pass an additional resolution referring to the Opportunity Scholarship Act or private school vouchers. Those of you who have not thought this one through, be aware that this act will take away millions of dollars from our school systems. When they take that money away and they take the teachers away, it won't be the math teachers, and I respect you. It won't be the social studies teachers, and I respect you. It will be the arts teachers. We will lose course opportunities for our students because of this act. So I would like to ask you to go along with the North Carolina School Board Association and dozens of other local school systems in also considering a resolution against the Opportunity Scholarship Act. And I'd also like to remind you briefly, communications is very valuable. Thank you.
I'm Kerry Stone. I'm a graduate of T.C. Robertson High School, class 79. And I'd just like to thank all these teachers because we're the backbone of our society. They teach everybody that what right from wrong, from Bill Estes picking up his paddle back in the day and teaching me right from wrong, to Charlie Kuntz teaching me to continue and strive on to do the right thing. And I am your candidate for clerk of court, Democratic candidate for clerk of court on May 6th. And I support these teachers. The work they're doing is so important to our community. Thank you.
Hi, my name's TJ, and I'm a little nervous because I don't usually get up and speak in public, so I'm going to read from this. I just wrote it out. Apologize. Really nervous. Thank you. My smartphone's not very smart either. Okay. I am dismayed at the lack of long-term perspective by the General Assembly of the real cost of cutting teacher funding, losing teachers due to lack of respect for all teachers do for students regardless of the level of pay. Teachers sacrifice daily to offer children a chance for a successful future. Now my phone's stuck. Many folks could not be here from in and out of the county whom stand in solidarity with teachers. Regardless of political differences, I know that they all agree that education is the foundation of a great society. And Memorial Monday, they had a day where they stood with teachers for public education. And I don't remember the count of the people that were there in Raleigh, but I know there was a number of people in Asheville. And they were there just to support teachers and let them know that we appreciate everything they do. I'm sorry about that. I greatly appreciate your willingness to stand on behalf of teachers rather than willingly participate in a process which only serves to create conflict and division, even though it is not viewed favorably by influential politicians. Thank you to all the teachers who pour out their heart and soul into the lives of their students, 2 of which are mine. This should not be a negotiable issue. It is a matter of what is right and wrong. Thank you.
I came here tonight in my red simply to support teachers, but a little while ago I got some really sad news that Senator Martin Nesbitt had died, and I felt like this was the perfect place for us to acknowledge him and to thank him, and for his spirit to be with us right now, because we don't have anybody who has been with us for as long as Martin has, supporting teachers and supporting education, and I just wanted to share the news for those of you who have not heard that yet. So in the spirit of Martin Nesbitt, who fought for us in the legislature against all this garbage that has passed and all the disrespect for teachers, he was a champion, and we appreciate him. Thank you.
Mr. Rhodes, that was the end of the list, correct? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our action agenda, and the first item on the action agenda is budget amendment number 4. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions or comments?
I just had a question.
Go right ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to, thank you so much for the very thorough report and the breakdowns, especially the capital outlay fund. I know in the past 2 months, we've approved moving some money from last year that hadn't been spent, which is now being expended on those projects that were supposed to be done last year. But I'm just still trying to get a handle on exactly which projects were done, this year using last year's money, and would like to get an itemized list of the entire capital outlay fund. I know last year we had $8.9 million that was undesignated. Now, according to the auditor last month, all of the funds have been assigned. So if I could just get an itemized list of all those projects that were assigned and the dollar amount for each one.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I have one, maybe Dr. Baldwin or either one. You worked in another system. You just come to us from Madison.
Yes, sir.
I've got 7+ years on this board. We've always had projects totaling in excess of 200+ most years, and some wind up being moved to the next year. Is this in any way irregular, first? And second, the project moves and the money moves with it, correct? We're not just moving money, we're moving, the project and the money are attached. It's been approved, they're together, and they are moved together, and it's simply a matter of logistics and timing to get all those projects done. Am I accurate in that question?
100%.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Very good. Moving on to the request to extend the audit contract with Johnson, Price, and Sprinkle, PA. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, I had some questions, and actually earlier today I had requested that we might remove this from the agenda just because of the lack of information. Find it. I'm sorry, if you could just give me 1 minute to find my audit.
No problem.
Does anyone else have a question or comment while we're waiting?
I would just say, Mr. Chair, it appears to me we have the information we need. We have a recommendation to continue at the same price to perform the same function that the auditor has performed for the 13-14 year, with a small increase for the subsequent year of 14-15. It seems to me we have the information we need.
Okay.
As it relates to this.
Yes, I had sent some information from Alamance County as far as the bids that they had received for their audit contract. They're just a few thousand students less than us. I didn't know if you had had a chance to look at that to see if it's comparing apples to apples or oranges to apples as far as what we're requesting for the $90,000. They were requesting, their audit bids all came in under $45,000. But perhaps it's for less work, I don't know.
It is for less hours. Their audit was for 400 hours. Our auditors go 768 hours is what our contract calls for.
They had also submitted a proposal detailing the work and the type of work that the firm had done before. We did not get a proposal.
This is just an extension of the current contract, and the same services would be provided for the 2013-14 year that were provided for 2012-13 with no increase, and that was the reason for the recommendation to retain the same firm.
And
right, and I know that
could I add one thing?
Yes.
I mean, last month they were here and we saw what they did, and we got all their books and things, so we know what they did last year.
Right, and I'm thinking in terms of, I know that Ms. Frisbee was not here last time when we approved, I think it was December of 2012, when Ms. Parker, the CFO, asked us to look at also renewing the contract at the time for the same company, JPS, and there were no bids taken then either. That some school districts do more of the work, perhaps like Alamance County from their finance department, and then the auditors do, another portion of the work. And I don't know if that's possible that we could do more of the work in-house and not have to pay, double what Alamance is paying, for example. I also presented an analysis last year on this topic, breaking down the charges by the hour, and we're paying $106 an hour right now for JPS, and they're planning to go up next year, although with the experience they have with doing the audit, all they have to do really is drop the numbers in. They have a template already set up, and to me it seems like a high price to pay for that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
You were speaking about Alamance County. Do you know what the results of their audit was? I mean, I will say this, a lot of times you get what you pay for, and I'm just wondering what level of expertise Alamance County has with the company that they use and what their results were. There's also more important things than just money, but how we are looking at how we spend the money that we have. And I, for one, have been very pleased with the company that we've been using.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Franklin.
Ms. Frisbee, how many people work in your department?
22.
And in comparison to Alamance County, that is more or less?
I have no idea how many finance people are in Alamance County.
And do we, out of those 22 employees, do we have a lot of downtime where those people could take on other activities?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Baldwin?
Well,
did you have a comment?
No, I just want to thank Ms. Frisbee. We got that request at noon today, and that team made calls and provided information that clearly shows that the quality that we're getting from Johnson, Price, and Sprinkle, and you made a reference that they are going to increase their prices. I don't think we've ever heard that. In fact, what we heard was the exact opposite, that they were holding. So I think that was certainly, by saying that would be misinformation to give to the public. So again, with all the awards that this particular finance department over decades has received, to question the quality of the type of service that we're providing, I think in an era of transparency and the accountability that we hear from so many people, I think that would certainly be a question that would not be appropriate. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
let me just clarify that. So the 2-year contract will remain at $90,000 for each year.
There will probably be a small increase for 2014-15, but that's just a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I negotiated, and he agreed just a small increase just to pay for the labor.
When will the work begin with the new contract? Will that start?
They start their field work in May.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we still have some time. The reason I had asked to delay the vote until next month was so that we could possibly get some bids. The North Carolina School Board Association recommends that you change auditors every 4 years. Basically, I guess you can get comfortable with the auditor, they can get comfortable with you. Just as far as being transparent, as Dr. Baldwin said, making sure that sometimes things might get overlooked, that a new auditor would come in and see something from a different perspective. Continuing, this will be, we've already had them for 5 years, I believe, since 2009, and then that'll be 7 years when this is completed, that it may behoove us to look into bidding this out. So I'm going to amend the motion on the floor that we postpone the vote until next month, until we can get some answers about what the difference is possibly between the Alamance data and hours, and possibly look into bidding out the contract.
All right, we have a motion to amend the motion.
It's not really a motion to amend, Ms. Baldwin, it's just a motion to postpone the vote on the main motion. Does that accurately reflect what you would like to occur?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So do I ask for a second?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there a second? Okay, I will ask the one question, I have just real quickly, what would the ramifications be if we did postpone?
If we did or did not?
If we did.
Well, the RFP process is very time-consuming, and we would have to write that proposal, send it out, get the responses back, evaluate the responses, and then bring those responses back to the superintendent and the Board of Education for a vote.
Okay.
At that point, it would be difficult to get that turned around by the April meeting.
Okay.
So that would be the May meeting that the possible approval could occur, and that would just be really too close to where they're starting their field work.
Okay.
And it might just delay the whole process.
Just a quick comment. I mean, I'm not opposed to switching one day, but I'm not sure this is the year that we should switch given the newness of our leadership in that department. And I think another year would be a much better time to switch if we do that.
All right.
Well, I just wanted to note that the last time we approved this was January 31st, 2013, when we approved their contract 2-year extension, which means potentially that would be January of 2014 if we were matching up with what we did in the past. So I'm not sure why, the delay, it seemed to be that important since we didn't even approve this until January of 2013 the last time. If that makes sense.
I think the delay you mentioned is if you put together an RFP to go out there for bid.
That is
there's
correct.
Your delay.
That is correct.
It's not delaying this vote. If we delay the vote and come back and vote and approve them, but if you put together an RFP and put it out there, then you've got a whole other issue that you're dealing with if everything goes well.
That is correct.
If anything doesn't go well, we went through this with the fire alarm system at Irwin High School. We had a recommendation. We put it out for bid and we came back with higher numbers. In your professional opinion, is this a fair price for the work that we're going to have done and the quality of the firm that we're dealing with in Johnson, Price, and Sprinkle?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
How many schools does Jackson Price Sprinkle audit each year?
I do not know that number off the top of my head.
Yeah, because this was important information in the Alamance bids, that they based on how many schools were served by the auditor. That was important criteria, and I just, want to feel like that we're,
We're not the only district they audit.
Right.
I have in my memory, I have asked him before, it was not at this past time, I think it was a year ago, I have in my memory that they do 12. But I could be wrong, but I have asked that question before privately with him because I know him in some other venues, and I think it's 12 that they do, is what my memory tells me.
And I guess still going back to the fact that we just approved the 2-year contract in January of 2013, and it's only been a year and a half. Is there is there a rush for this? Because if we were able to approve this in January of 2013, why can't we wait till January of 2014, and get some more bids, like I was saying?
Well, it's the bid process that will take the time.
Right.
Getting the proposal, sending it out to the vendors, getting those responses back, evaluating those responses, and then making a recommendation. And they start their field work in May, and I'd just rather not delay the process.
Right.
Haven't we already passed January 2014, though?
This is March.
I'm sorry. I'm at 2015, excuse me. You're correct. 2 years would be 2015 January.
In order to give the process adequate time, the RFP should be sent out in December or January for the next year.
Okay, thank you for that information, too. We did not receive, like I said, anything more than a one-page memo. I'm still not comfortable, without the details of knowing what the money's going for. Are we paying for too much information that we don't need? If Alamance is paying $45,000 for their information, I just want to make sure that the dollars are focused on teaching and learning as many as possible.
Duly noted, Ms. Baldwin.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also make a comment that we actually received more than a one-page memo, because I've got a pretty thick book sitting on my nightstand right now that tells me otherwise. And
are you talking about the audit, you mean?
The actual book that we got, I believe it was just last month.
The Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Yes, so explain to me exactly what it is that you want to see differently with that this company is not doing that you think can be done differently, and that Alamance County is doing that's going to bring Buncombe County schools to such a higher level. I'm not quite sure I'm following where you're going with this.
Well, I wanted to compare basically what Alamance, for example, I mean, we could look at another county too, you know, what are they requesting them to do? Maybe they're asking for the same things, but they're getting it for half the price. I don't know the answer. That's why I wanted some more time so that we could look into this and see how are they able to pay half price for their audit.
Could you have possibly, since this has been on your mind, I would assume, since before this morning, maybe that was something you could have gone and researched exactly what Alamance was getting for their money so that you could have brought it to this board and then might have been more likely to make the decision to extend the vote to another day?
I think we all received the information, Amy, on Friday, and I was able to get the proposal from Alamance yesterday.
Okay.
And I did send it on to the superintendent and to Ms. Frisbee.
So this just came to your mind yesterday?
No, that's when I was able to get the information from Alamance. You know, we just found out on Friday about it.
We've bid it out since 2009, because I remember seeing that, and it was, I mean, so it hadn't been not bid, and when we did, this was the lowest price, or was right in there. And there were some, I remember one was 125,000. So I mean, we didn't have any that were in the 40s. And I don't remember if they were the lowest, but I think they probably were. But we had some that were 150,000.
Well, I will say, if I had gotten information that a county was getting such a great deal at $45,000, I would be sure that I would do the research as quickly as I could so that I could bring it to my fellow board members so that they could make the decision as to whether or not to move forward. So again, I'm not sure why you want to waste this system's time and effort into looking for other bids when we have done, you know, we've gone with a company that, as far as I can tell, has done a fantastic job.
Well, I don't want to belabor this. I'm just going to close. I mean, I'm just closing in the fact that I just want to see us effectively use our dollars so that we have money for teaching and learning.
All right. Okay. All right. We're being very repetitive right now, so I'm going to move forward and ask for a vote. Okay. All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Board, before you now, you have a resolution dealing with the teacher contract. If you would allow me, I'd like to read it before I ask for a motion. I'm sorry, it's probably going to take a few minutes, but now comes the Buncombe County Board of Education here and after the board on this, the 6th day of March 2013, and this duly constituted regular meeting where a quorum of said board is present, hereby resolve the following. Whereas in the Appropriations Acts of 2013 North Carolina Sessions Law 36, hereinafter the Appropriations Act, the North Carolina General Assembly amended North Carolina General Statute 115C-325 to prohibit local boards of education from conferring career status for any additional teachers after August 1st, 2013, and effective July 1st, 2018, eliminating career status for those career teachers who have previously been granted career status by a local board of education. Whereas this board takes no official position as to prospectively eliminating career status for teachers who have yet to obtain it, the board believes that retroactively removing career status from these teachers who have already obtained it may unconstitutionally interfere with employment contracts legally issued by the board by eliminating a vested property right from career status teachers in violation of the United States and North Carolina constitutions. Whereas, as of the date of this resolution, there is pending litigation regarding the legality of the Appropriation Acts with respect to retroactively eliminating career status for teachers, and whereas the Appropriations Act includes legislation that requires superintendents to recommend and local boards of education to offer 4-year contracts to 25% of teachers with 3 consecutive years of teaching experience in the school district who have met certain standards of performance, hereinafter the 25% mandate. Whereas the 25% mandate requires that in exchange for the 4-year contract and a $500 pay raise for each year of the contract beginning with the 2014-2015 school years, those teachers with career status will voluntarily relinquish their career status. Whereas in order to consider the contract offer under the 25% mandate and given the pending litigation calling into question the legality of retroactively divesting teachers of their career status, teachers will not have sufficient information to make an informed decision when they are faced with the decision to voluntarily forfeit their vested property right to career status in exchange for a 4-year contract and additional compensation. Whereas, furthermore, the language of the 25% mandate is vague and subject to multiple inconsistent... excuse me, I hit the wrong button. Now let me find where I was. Okay, sorry about that. Whereas, furthermore, the language in the 25% mandate is vague and subject to multiple inconsistent interpretations. Whereas the language in the 25% mandate does not define the term teacher, and that term has been interpreted differently by the General Assembly's physical staff in the North Carolina General Assembly. Whereas the Attorney General's opinion, assuming that opinion is upheld in court, broadly defines teacher to include various classifications of employees aside from traditional classroom teachers. And whereas the 25% mandate requires superintendents to recommend only those teachers who are proficient on the teacher evaluation instrument, but fails to recognize that many categories of employees treated as teachers, based on the Attorney General's advisory opinion of that term, are not measured by teacher evaluation instruments that consider proficiency. Whereas there is no existing common measurement or evaluation instrument that applies to all of the teachers, based on the Attorney General's advisory opinion of that term, for ratings, test data, teacher effectiveness ratings, or other objective measurement. Whereas the 25% mandate fails as a merit-based pay initiative that teachers had no prior notice of the criteria necessary to earn additional compensation. And whereas this school system has far more than 25% of its teachers that deserve a merit-based pay raise given the excellent service they provide to our students, and therefore the 25% mandate is divisive, inequitable, and demeaning to our teachers. Whereas at this point, the 25% mandate has only been funded for this current biennium budget, and the General Assembly has not assured boards of education or teachers that adequate funds will be allocated to fund the 25% mandate for the full 4 years. Whereas in the event that the General Assembly does not fund the mandate beyond the current biennium budget, the financial obligations to fund the additional compensation for those teachers who voluntarily accept the terms of the 4-year contract may fall to the board. And whereas the board is deeply concerned that the potential unlawful and unconstitutional elimination of a vested and earned property right and the identification of only 25% of the Buncombe County Schools teachers for long-term contracts threatens to disrupt the collaborative, collegial and stable teaching and learning environments that the research shows are critical to high levels of student performance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board requests that the North Carolina General Assembly rescind all provisions of the Appropriations Act that eliminate career status for those teachers who have already been awarded career status, that the General Assembly restore career status to those teachers who have a vested right to career status by virtue of having been awarded career status after complying with the statutory and contractual requirements of the board and the state of North Carolina, and allow the board to use the funds allocated in the state budget for the 25% mandate as part of effective and locally developed compensation plan that recruits, retains, and rewards excellence in teaching. And be it further resolved that the board has significant legal concerns and reservations regarding the 25% mandate and its impact on the board and its employees. This the day, 6th day of March, 2014. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a few questions, if I might.
Yes, sir.
made some notes. Some of this we've discussed, some of it's covered pretty well. First question for the board attorney, in terms of statute and legal status, as I understand it, this has been funded, we know, for 1 year. If teachers elect to give up their career status and it's not funded for the final 3 years, are we as a board legally obligated, because they, as I understand it, they will sign a document that is a 4-page or a 4-year contract that says we as a board through the state will be making that pay adjustment for the teachers that would choose to do this. And if it's not funded, where does that do, what legally happens at that point? What happens to us? What happens to a teacher? What's their legal ramification if because in my mind at that point the contract would be void?
You are correct. I'm going to try to answer these in the order that you presented them. The first one is that it has only been funded for this biennium, which only means 1 year of the 4 years has been funded, because the first year of the biennium is the current year we are in right now. Second, the board does contract with teachers. The state doesn't contract with anybody. So it's ultimately the board's responsibilities to fulfill the obligations of those contracts. If the State General Assembly for some reason failed to appropriate the necessary funds for the remaining salary increase for those teachers who are offered and actually choose to sign one of those contracts, then ultimately it would fall back up onto the board to honor that with some other type of funding, or B, to take legal steps through due process to eliminate that salary from the teacher. I mean, certainly the contract can be tied contingent to that funding as well, but if the board did not actually have those meetings, if the board did not have the funds to pick up the slack from the state for not funding it, if that would be the case, the board would either, at the worst case scenario, if they couldn't afford to pay them, worst case scenario would be that the board would actually have to kind of demote a large portion of its teaching staff through due process in the statute, which would be an administrative nightmare.
Absolute nightmare.
And probably a personal nightmare for the teacher or teachers. But that would just, that's really the worst case scenario if the board did not have the ability to pick up the slack in funding.
And Mr. Chair, could I ask one more question? I don't want to, if you want to go around and come back, I don't know what your plan is.
Go ahead.
I can't say this as well as the folks who spoke here this evening spoke, but I'm going to ask the question. I've said this pretty consistently to anybody I've talked to from the beginning, but I'm going to ask the question from a legal standpoint. As a Board of Education, as an LEA, what is the legal ramification to us if we, as a board, choose not to participate?
I assume you're asking me that question.
I am asking you that question.
You're not on the spot.
And I just kind of want to say, I'm going to put my personal opinion about the legislation aside. The law says the superintendent shall. The law says the Board of Education shall. From your attorney's point of view, you should follow the law. There are a lot of laws that I don't like. There are a lot of laws that a lot of us don't like. And we are ultimately still responsible for following them, including the speed limit. But that's my legal opinion. In regards to specifically the question that you raised, ultimately there is really no provision in the law to remove a board member other than through the district attorney bringing some sort of, seems odd in this scenario, bringing some sort of action against the board member for not fulfilling their duties or for violating the law. That is ultimately the worst consequence that could occur from the legal standpoint to board members for not following the law.
But the teacher individually has the option or the right to choose not to participate.
There is no mandate that if offered the contract and the additional money in exchange for the Voluntary relinquishment, as the statute calls it, of career status. The teacher does not have to accept that. The teacher is free to say no. And kind of based on that survey results that those folks presented earlier, I think a lot may say no. But that is totally the teacher's choice, and it is their decision, personal decision to make.
Okay. Other board members have any questions or comments?
I did. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Chip. Mr. Craig.
Bob, thank you, first of all, for running with this and taking the initiative to put this together, and I appreciate the work that you did to make this happen tonight. I wanted to make a small change, very small change. I guess I should do that in the form of a motion, but I would make a motion that we remove the words merit-based on the top of the second page and just take that out. And so it would read, this school system has far more than 25% of teachers that deserve a pay raise given the excellent service that provided to these students.
All right, is there a second to remove that?
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we'll strike the merit-based from that. Ms. Connie, do you have that?
I do, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, any other, Ms. Baldwin?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm glad we're taking this bold first step towards supporting our teachers and opposing the 25% contract mandate. But I want to challenge the board to take it further and to proactively talk with our state legislators, reschedule that legislative breakfast we had planned, ask for a comprehensive pay plan for teachers, not this piecemeal stuff we've been getting from them, but a comprehensive plan that has teacher input incorporated into it. It's obvious that they need to talk with teachers and find out what the best plan would be. I also want to ask that we reschedule that meeting we had with commissioners that got canceled to talk about the budget. Right now, our principals have received an increase in their supplement. Back in 2006, they received what we call extra duty pay, or it's a second supplement for overtime that they get every month. And also, our non-certified people got a raise. They got 11% supplement, well, 10.77% to be exact, supplement too. But nobody has given the teachers an increase in their supplement. And this is something the county commissioners can do. So I want to just challenge us to look at those, talk with our legislators and our commissioners about what we can do for teacher pay.
Okay, just one thing that I'm sure many of you don't know is several of the board members had expressed wanting, this talked about earlier, but we had scheduled earlier last month, we had scheduled a breakfast with our state legislators that we were not able to pull together. And I just want to encourage, everyone here to make contact in a positive manner with our state legislators and make sure that they understand. I mean, there is some talk, I've heard a little bit of talk about, maybe modifying this law, maybe radical change will happen, but I just want to encourage, and I'm going to steal something from Pat that he said earlier. I don't think there's anything more powerful, certainly I think it's more powerful than this resolution, than the 82% of the teachers that decided or have said that they would not accept. I don't think that you can send a stronger message than that. And I just want you to know that we support you. And I would encourage the board to talk with our state legislators. It's time for a raise for all of our employees, and we will work hard to do the best that we can once we have an idea of what's happening with the changes in the budget that are coming up. So, any other comments?
I'd like to
Yes,
make a couple of comments. I'm going to speak as a parent for a moment. Earlier, we heard the number 350 people would be the ones getting offered this contract. I have one child. She's currently in the 7th grade. And so I think I added it up pretty well, but in the course of her school lifetime, she's had 26 teachers. Out of those 26, if memory serves me right, 18 to 20 of them would have qualified for this contract, and I actually see quite a few of them sitting out here tonight. And it makes me so proud to see you guys here, and sad at the same time that it has come to this, because it should have never have come to this. Because as a parent, I feel that every one of those teachers deserved that contract and more. And so I did the math, which isn't my strong suit, and I think that it's come up to about, if we took all of my daughter's teachers over the years, I would be taking about 7% of those 350 teachers, and that's a little greedy on my part, and I'm just one parent. And I know I am not the only parent that feels that way. I see several parents here that I know, and they've all said the same thing. We value our teachers. You guys have taught me so much over the years. My daughter has learned so much from so many of you, and I promised her that I would speak tonight just to pass along her thanks, because she truly loves every one of you. So it is my intention, and what I've been doing is speaking with our legislators, breakfast or no breakfast. I've made a point of talking with them, trying to get them to see things in a positive way, offering other ideas, and I will continue to do that. Also have spoken with the county commissioners, and let me tell you, they are very, very supportive of you. I have yet to speak to one who is not supportive of our educators. They have, concerns just like the rest of us. How do we do everything that we're being asked to do? But their hearts are in the right place. And I could ramble on for quite a while. This is something I'm very passionate about, but again, I just wanted to let you know how much it means to see you guys here united, and I fully support you. Right. Thank you again.
All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda, we have a board directive from Ms. Franklin. Ms. Franklin, would you like to make that request?
I would. Mr. Chairman, I request that the administration explore the local due process protection for the teachers in Buncombe County who currently have tenure, and for those who would have received tenure by the 2012-13 law.
All right, that is a board directive. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I could speak to it.
All right.
Having been a teacher in Buncombe County, I have always felt that Buncombe County was a good employer. And as a board member, I want to continue to convey to our teachers and people that work for us on a daily basis that I want us to be a good employer. And I feel like that people that have worked hard and met all the criteria for due process or tenure deserve to be able to have that continue in this county. I want this board to honor the contract and to allow teachers to continue to practice their craft without fear of arbitrary and capricious actions. And I say that now because we have a supported commitment to that in this county, and we're not going to all be here forever. So by doing this and asking the administration to meet with our attorneys and come back with a suggestion for us about how we might be able to do that, I feel like is a positive step.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor of having the administration and our attorney look into this and bringing in something in the form of a policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chair, can I request a break?
I think we're going to be finished here in just a second.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve everything on the consent agenda,
So
including
moved,
the
Mr. Chair.
7,000 series policies?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We also have on the agenda some policies for first reading. And please note that our next meeting will not be the first Thursday in April, but the second due to spring break. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
All in favor say aye.
I didn't realize we were that close to being done.
Is that quick enough for you?
That is very good. Thank you for saying.
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. Well, I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way, my girl? Talking about my girl. I've got so much honey, the bees in me. I've got a sweeter song than the birds